I know you all have heard of Bourbon Street, and probably even Storyville, but what did the residents of New Orleans do before either of those places existed? Take note this little 2-block stretch of road right here behind me, currently known as French Market Place. In the 1840s to the 1870s, it was one of the most infamous streets in all of New Orleans, known as Gallatin Street. You want to hear more about the bad boys and girls of the mid-1850s? Follow me. We're here on Gallatin Street, standing right behind American Sports Saloon, to tell you all about one of our most infamous streets here in the city. I picked this spot because this is one of 3 original buildings still left from the Gallatin Street days, and also the home of one very famous Gallatin Street resident, a woman by the name of Mary Jane Bricktop Jackson, a rather tall, very tall Irish woman with long, thick red hair. She would pile it up on top of her head, earning her the nickname Bricktop. Murderpedia has her listed as one of New Orleans' most famous serial killers, a female at that. Now, I disagree with that just a little bit. When I think of a serial killer, I think of those who kill for thrills. It's really a sickness. She was killing more out of survival. I'm sure she would take that proud title anyway, but here's how her story really went. A poor Irish immigrant, she came here to New Orleans, likely docked right behind us on the river for Gallatin Street. Made her way looking for work. She ended up working as a prostitute, a working girl like many poor immigrants did in the founding days of America. It wasn't long before, even though she was working, she met one of the first loves of her life. But things never went very well for Mary Jane when she would test those romantic waters, and in fact, it took only months before her new lover made the mistake of calling her a whore, which she reacted to by beating him into a bloody pulp right in the middle of the street. Sure, how did she get away with that? Well, she didn't. But her timing, as always, was impeccable. You see, in 1837, we had the worst yellow fever outbreak in the history of our city. Over 10,000 people would die in 9 months. That's a lot of people for that time. 1842, she kills someone in the middle of the street, but it's not death we're really afraid of, it's germs. So Mary Jane, she gets arrested, she goes on trial, she's found guilty, but having nothing to do with murdering someone. In fact, she goes to jail for improper disposal of a dead body. Note to self, hide the body. Long after she was released from serving her 2-year prison for improper disposal of a body, Mary Jane began another romantic relationship. A man that we know by the name of Long Johnny. You see, they were both very tall. I'm sure that's why they were a great match for each other. But it didn't take long before they began to argue. A very philosophical argument. You see, Mary Jane had her own weapon design. For an above-average woman, she couldn't just have a regular dagger. She had a knife designed, 5-inch blades on either side, and a huge handle in the middle. Rumor has it this was, she said, so she could get you coming or going. Well, philosophical argument involved around what way would Johnny fall if she were to stab him. Long Johnny, convinced because of his height he would fall backwards, just could not see that she was an experienced woman who knew for sure he would fall forward. After several minutes of arguing, Mary Jane, like most women, tired of the argument and made her point right in Long Johnny's chest. He fell forward. Point made. If you're a Civil War buff of any kind, it's probably a name you've heard before. General Benjamin Butler. He was not liked in this city by anyone. It did not matter your sex, your race, your class, how much money you had, what your job was. Benjamin Butler was on the bottom of your list of likable people. No matter who you were, you would wait until he passed under your window before dumping your chamber pot right onto his head. Of course, he was a general. He'd eventually have enough of it. And over the course of time, there were 2 things he did to get even with us. The first thing he did almost as he arrived to town. Set our Washington artillery on fire, burn a whole bunch of our records, irreplaceable ones to this day we've never found again. But the second thing he did applies to Mary Jane. Because you see, eventually that third love of hers would also make the fatal mistake of attempting to stand up to a very independent woman. This ended with him also dead and bloodied in the street. Now, laws were much stricter then, and disease was not on our mind. So Mary Jane was arrested, and she did go to jail for murder, set to serve the rest of her life in New Orleans prison. However, the second thing that General Benjamin Butler did, after several years of being here, said, "Oh, really, New Orleans? Well, I've got a surprise for you." And the very next day, he released all of our prisoners from jail, including one, Mary Jane Bricktop Jackson. She served 2 years, disappeared after that, and to this day, we're not really sure where she ended up. If I ever find out, I'll be sure to tell you first. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching.